It was supposed to be just another ordinary day, the kind of day where nothing special happens, where life moves quietly, predictably, almost invisibly. Ethan stepped out of his apartment, adjusting the strap of his worn-out backpack over his shoulder. The morning air was crisp, carrying the distant hum of traffic and the faint chatter of strangers passing by. He glanced at his phone, 8:17 a.m. He was running a little late. Not again, he muttered under his breath, picking up his pace. The street was alive, just like always. People rushing to work, coffee cups in hand, eyes glued to their screens. No one really noticed anyone. That was the unspoken rule of the city, or at least that's what Ethan believed. Until today, as he approached the subway entrance, he felt it, a look. It was subtle at first, almost invisible. A quick glance from a woman standing near the stairs. Her eyes met his for just a second before she quickly looked away. Ethan didn't think much of it. It happens all the time, right? But then, it happened again. A man walking past him slowed down just enough to take a second look. Not curiosity, not recognition, something else. Ethan frowned slightly but kept walking. Maybe I'm overthinking, he told himself. But deep down, something felt off. The subway station was crowded. The usual chaos, the usual noise, the usual indifference. Ethan stood near the edge of the platform, waiting for the train. He could feel the weight of the morning pressing down on him, assignments, deadlines, responsibilities. Then he noticed it again. People were standing, but not too close. There was space around him, more space than usual. At first, he thought it was coincidence. Maybe the crowd was just shifting. Maybe people were just moving naturally. But when the train arrived and everyone pushed forward, no one pushed him. No one brushed past him. No one stood beside him. They moved around him, as if there was an invisible barrier, as if he didn't belong in the same space. Inside the train, the feeling grew stronger. Seats were filling quickly. People squeezing into tight spaces, shoulder to shoulder, back to back. But the seat next to Ethan, empty. Even when the train became crowded, even when people were standing, that seat remained empty. A woman looked at it, hesitated, then chose to stand instead. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. How could he not? He shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to care, pretending not to see what was right in front of him. But his mind was racing. Is it me? No, it can't be. Or is it the train stopped? More people entered. A young boy, maybe around 10 years old, walked in with his mother. He looked around, scanning for a place to sit. His eyes landed on the empty seat next to Ethan. He started walking toward it. But before he could reach it, his mother gently pulled him back. "No, not there," she whispered. The boy looked confused. "But there's a seat." I said no. Her grip tightened. Ethan heard it. Every word, every pause, every unspoken meaning. That was the moment something inside him shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Just realization. A quiet, heavy realization that settled deep in his chest. The train ride felt longer than usual. Every second stretched. Every glance felt louder. Every silence felt heavier. When his stop finally came, Ethan stood up quickly and walked out, not looking back. He needed air. Outside, the city looked the same. Cars, buildings, people, everything unchanged. But Ethan wasn't. He walked faster than usual, his mind replaying everything that had just happened. The looks, the distance, the empty seat, the whisper. He stopped at a crosswalk, staring at the red light, and for the first time, he asked himself something he had never truly asked before. Is this how they see me? The light turned green, but Ethan didn't move immediately, because the answer was already there. Later that day, Ethan sat alone in a small cafe. A cup of coffee sat untouched in front of him. He wasn't hungry, he wasn't thirsty. He was thinking, replaying, analyzing every moment like a broken record. A group of people entered the cafe, laughing loudly. Their energy filled the room. Ethan glanced at them briefly, then looked away. He didn't want to feel it again. That look, that distance, that silent judgment. But then something unexpected happened. A man walked in, older, calm, observant. He ordered his coffee and looked around the room, scanning for a seat. His eyes landed on Ethan. For a moment, Ethan braced himself. Here it comes again. The hesitation, the judgment, the choice to walk away. But instead, the man smiled. A genuine, warm smile. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. Ethan hesitated. "Yeah, sure." The man sat down, placing his cup on the table. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the man leaned slightly forward. "You look like you've had a long day," he said gently. Ethan let out a quiet laugh. You have no idea? Something about the man felt different, save not because he said anything special, but because he didn't look at Ethan the way others did. There was no judgment, no distance, no invisible wall. Want to talk about it? The man asked. Ethan paused. He wasn't used to opening up to strangers. But today wasn't normal. Nothing about today was normal. So he spoke. He told them everything. The subway, the looks, the empty seat, the whisper, every detail, every feeling, every question. The man listened quietly. No interruptions, no assumptions, just listening. When Ethan finished, there was a brief silence. Then the man nodded slowly. I've seen that look before, he said. Ethan looked up. You have? The man smiled sadly. More times than I can count. For the first time that day, Ethan didn't feel alone. Here's the thing, the man continued. Racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Ethan stayed silent, absorbing every word. It shows up in distance, in silence, in hesitation, in the choices people make, without even realizing why. Ethan stared at his coffee. So, what do you do about it? He asked quietly. The man leaned back slightly, thinking. You don't let it define you, he said. Ethan looked at him. But it affects you, of course it does, the man replied. We're human. We feel it. We carry it. He paused. But we don't become it. Those words stayed with Ethan. As the evening sun began to set, casting golden light through the cafe windows, something inside Ethan began to change. Not the world, not the people, but him. He stood up, grabbing his backpack. Thank you, he said. The man smiled. Take care of yourself. As Ethan stepped back onto the street, the city felt different again. Not because people had changed, but because he had seen something deeper, understood something real. Yes, the looks would still exist. The distance would still happen. The silence would still speak. But now he knew the truth. Racism wasn't always loud. It wasn't always obvious. Sometimes it was just a look. And sometimes that look could change everything. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The city outside his window was alive, distant sirens, passing cars, muffled voices drifting through the streets. But inside his room, everything felt unbearably quiet. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The man's words echoed in his mind. Racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Ethan turned to his side, closing his eyes. But instead of sleep, memories came. Not just from today, from years ago. Moments he had ignored. Moments he had brushed off. Moments he had told himself don't matter. He remembered being in school. A group project. Everyone quickly forming teams. Laughing. Calling out to friends. And then there was him. Standing there. Waiting. Hoping someone would say his name. No one did. Not because they hated him, not because they knew him, but because they didn't choose him back then. He told himself it was nothing, just coincidence. But now, it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. He sat up, running his hands through his hair. Why didn't I see it before? He whispered. Or maybe he had seen it. He just didn't want to accept it. The next morning came too quickly. Ethan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt. For a moment, he just looked at himself. Not the way others saw him, but the way he saw himself. And for the first time in a long time, he hesitated. Is this what they judge? He thought. Is this all they see? He shook his head, grabbing his bag. No, he said quietly. Not today. The streets were just as busy as always. Same people, same noise, same rhythm. But today, Ethan noticed more. A little too much. A man locking his car door as Ethan walked past. A woman clutching her purse a little tighter. A quick glance, then another, then the silence. It was everywhere. Not loud, not aggressive, but constant. Ethan felt it building inside him. Not anger, not yet, but something close, something heavy. By the time he reached the subway, his chest felt tight. The same platform, the same crowd, the same unspoken distance. This time, he didn't ignore it. He saw it clearly. Every step people took to avoid him, every second glance, every invisible line drawn around him. But then, something unexpected happened. A man rushed into the train at the last second, clearly in a hurry. He looked around quickly and, without hesitation, sat right next to Ethan. No pause, no second thought, no hesitation. Ethan blinked, slightly surprised. The man adjusted his bag, catching his breath. Man, I almost missed that, he said with a small laugh. Ethan looked at him. Yeah, it was such a small moment. So simple. So normal. But to Ethan, it felt different. because for once there was no distance, no invisible wall, no silent judgment, just two people sharing a seat. Like it was supposed to be. Ethan felt something shift inside him again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was lighter. He glanced around the train, the same people, the same space, the same world, and yet not everyone was the same. The man next to him didn't know Ethan, didn't analyze him, didn't judge him. He just existed beside him, and somehow that meant everything. Ethan leaned back slightly, taking a slow breath. Maybe the world wasn't as simple as he thought. Not entirely cruel, not entirely kind, but somewhere in between. When his stop arrived, Ethan stood up. "Have a good day," the man said casually. Ethan paused for a second, then nodded. "You too." As he stepped out of the train, something felt different. Not the world, not the people, but his perspective. Yes, the looks would still come. The silence would still exist. The distance would still be there. But so would moments like this. Small, unexpected, human. And maybe, just maybe, those moments mattered more than he realized. Because sometimes it only takes one person to remind you that not everyone sees you the same way.